Good evening. My name is Joe Sam Robinson. It's my pleasure to have with us tonight one of Macon, Georgia's leading liberals, Mr. Harry Gross, who chuckles at that. He's other attributes, but for that purpose of our discussion, he'll take the left and I'll take the right, I think. And we might talk a little bit tonight about the war in the Middle East, the Israeli-U.S. War against Iran, and just talk a little bit about that, which actually is an issue of substantial consequence. And many factors are involved in this problem, I'd call it that. So to start with, it's somewhat of a religious war, I would say, between Israel and Iran. The Shiite Muslim community and the Israeli Jewish community. They've had many tensions over the years. There's fairly tough language in the Quran about the Jewish people, something like Leviticus on steroids. There's a long-standing relationship back and forth. The Persians actually captured the Jewish people, took them away, and Cyrus brought them back, let them come home. So that was 2,500 years ago, all kinds of interchanges back and forth, Western colonial events, the destruction of the temple, the most of the Jewish population condemned to be wandering, seeing lots of prejudice against them over the years, in some ways culminating with the Nazi atrocities of World War II, and then one result of that was a large bit of sympathy for the Jewish community, and the idea of returning them to their ancient homeland was quite attractive on in many circles. Not without people that were against it, but nevertheless, that's what happened. And the problem is that that homeland had been occupied for several thousand years by another ethnic group. So over the years, we've had these terrible conflicts, and pretty much the West has been on the Israeli side, and it's been going on for a long time. The Iranians have threatened to kill all the Jewish people and have been involved in many atrocities. So there's a natural animosity between the two countries. There have been different ways that this has worked itself out. The U.S. has become an Israeli ally and recently joined Israel with an attack against the Iranians. And this brings up, at this point, several questions of where we are right now. The first point might be, what are the reasons to have this attack, and how the U.S. plays its role in this. So certainly, I think the Jewish people, the Israeli state, is quite a number of reasons to do this. They've been threatened with different atrocities. They've had them committed recently, and with their long-standing history of being the underdog in all kinds of confrontations, and the ideas that just intelligent response, peace treaties often don't work to their advantage. So they have some reasons to do this, and the U.S., I would say, has somewhat less reasons. And the complicated relationship between the two nations have brought us to this point. And the way this happened was the U.S. president, as far as one can say, somewhat arbitrarily pushed the button to undertake this, with first point being the way that war happens these days, and what the Constitution says about how war is declared and what's actually happened, and the way that the country is working itself through a situation where the traditional notions of war are a little blurred. Maybe it's just a momentary intrusion. Maybe it's just a little tiff that goes away in a little bit. And were Congress totally involved or gave their consent to the arrangement, it would be a little time-consuming, difficult, and might make the process less strategically possible. So we have this. We have that. Now the war is going full-fledged. So there are several issues that we might discuss, and I'll toss the football to Harry at this point. How do you think the war is going to end?
Right now, all indications are that it's going to end with the Iranian regime intact, more hardline than before, with trillions of dollars in damage done to the economy of the world, the United States military capacity significantly diminished globally, and great humiliation for us because this was a very poorly thought out endeavor. We could have done this properly. We could have done this well. But we took no effort to adequately plan for a campaign that was more than a decapitation strike. And the Iranian regime has structured itself in response to American tactics over the last 30 years to make a decapitation strike impossible. We killed the supreme leader, but all we did was put in place someone who was much more pro-nuclear, much more anti-American, much more in bed with the Republican Guard, and we killed his wife and children in the same strike, and his father, of course. Peace is impossible at that point from a personal level. A peaceful resolution is impossible. I think what the president hoped to do was a repeat of his earlier strike against Iran and a repeat of his raid on Venezuela where we captured Maduro, which was just you press a button, you drop a few bombs, you move in fast, and then you kind of negotiate an off-ramp out of there. But the president himself admitted we killed almost everyone that we had put as a potential replacement for Khomeini. They were killed in our initial strikes because we didn't plan this properly. We don't have enough missile interceptors. There are currently no missile interceptors in the entirety of the Korean Peninsula because we've had to pull them from Korea to put them in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, and to protect our own interests because we didn't produce enough. We severely underestimated Iran's military capacity to just lob stuff at us. These aren't particularly complex missiles, but they just make up for it in volume. And we're running out of ammunition. And that means we are going to suffer many more casualties before this is over. And the regime has retreated most of its assets and its key personnel to the northeast, out of range of most of our aircraft and strike capacity at this point. So there's not going to be an easy fix. This is going to last probably at least a couple months more, maybe years.
Well, actually, I'm somewhat in agreement with you on this point, and I might come at this from a slightly different angle. So it appears to me that there are several issues that we could discuss. Number one is using the muscle, the coiled muscle of our country is a big deal. Mm-hmm. We have a special role in the world, and so arbitrary war is something that's very destabilizing for the 8 billion people on the planet. Mm-hmm. It's not a good road to go down in general in this age and time. Mm-hmm. War is bad. And I think our past generations know that. There have been big efforts after World War I, the League of Nations, big efforts after World War II, the United Nations, efforts to stop war. And strangely enough, I think President Trump has his, Committee of Peace, some idea.
Board of Peace.
Board of Peace, yes. So, war is bad. It's very, and we've had problems in doing that recently quite a bit. And so in some ways, the American people were suborned into supporting wars, particularly the ones in Iraq, with the idea that nuclear weapons were there. And they were not. Mm-hmm. And so why were we going to do this? Well, The story is, what are the facts that are going on right now? What are the facts that cause this? What are the facts? And is it that Iran is getting ready to produce another nuclear weapon? It's the same thing that was said to us before. It's very dangerous. And I think we can make the comment, there are nuclear weapons in abundance in the world. Abundance. And one of the spooky things is Pakistan, a bordering Islamic country, has said that if, it's what they said, if the U.S. attacked Iran, they would give them a nuclear weapon to respond. I mean, at least they've made that statement. North Korea certainly has a huge number of nuclear weapons, and the U.S. has allowed regimes that have obvious evil intent to possess extraordinary nuclear weapons, which have the ability to strike the U.S. without any substantial response. So one argument that is, well, if they get nuclear weapons, the U.S. is in danger. Well, there are many hostile regimes out there that put us in danger. And also, terrorists can obtain nuclear weapons. It's not science fiction to say that's possible. It is, I think, certainly true that the Israelis have a very definite 1, 2, 3 danger from Iran having nuclear weapons. They've said, we're going to kill you, we're going to blow you up. They've made efforts to do that in the past. And the Israelis have certainly, in their history, have seen many efforts at people trying to extinguish them. So it's somewhat understandable that would be something in there. They want that not to happen. The U.S., I think, less so, less of an issue with us. But we're now involved in this, and some of the questions would be, how do we get out? Now, I believe President Trump's idea, as far as I can tell, is that he's going to basically say we've won the war. And how did we win the war? Well, we basically destroyed everything the Iranians have, and we're going to stop now. But the war doesn't end until the defeated nation or group says, we lose. We want to give up, and we want to stop. We're not going to bother anybody anymore. And that would involve quite a situation. Now, you mentioned the fact that the president, leader of Iran, had this catastrophic event that occurred. Another thing that might be said is that he is apparently injured in the initial attack. I even heard at some point, probably apocryphally, that he was badly injured, and I think that the Secretary of War, nice name, said that he could not talk. He had speech issues and had been disfigured by the attack that killed his family. Well, you have this kind of person that's been put in as the unitary leader of the almost 90 million people in the country, almost 90 million people, and the support apparatus that he has there is extremely powerful and not democratic. And the idea that, which has been touted, that don't worry about anything, the people will rise up and toss the guy out. It would be as if the U.S. has Republicans, Democrats, maybe very tense with each other. You could say that in our country. And then 9/11 happened, which was a small potatoes compared to what the deal they've been through. And the whole country came together also. They have the ferocious internal police. They've got lots of religious support. This is if pick whoever you want to say is a pretty motivated religious group in the U.S. that was running the place and had their guy in there, and they had to believe that God was really on their side, and they had a divine mission to preserve their country. And they've also been getting pretty much unitary information. So the national media said this, said that. It's not really competing viewpoints that are freely expressed. So people have been hearing whatever the story is. They've got lots of people that are ready to strike out at any sign of change. So it would appear that the idea that was been touted that the people are going to riot, it will be very easy, says President Trump, to take care of this problem. We'll kill everybody, and then naturally the man on the street will leap forward, and it'll be a democratic paradisio will take place. Everything will join the Western world. Everything. All we had to do was kill a few people. Well, of course, that's really stupid to start with, and it brings up the question of what kind of information is actually going on around President Trump. What kind of information is he getting? What is the real story, and is that getting out to the American people? And are there advisors that bring up a contrary, counterfactual viewpoint? So, which I would hope that takes place when it's like President Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis. There were people there that said, "Let's blow up Cuba." There are lots of them. Let's blow it. Let's blow the place up. And not knowing that this could have provoked a nuclear war. And so restraint is often the best thing if you're in a position of power. And just to continue on the point, often what seems to happen with President Trump is that, at least he's had a number of aggressive policies that he's put there, and without any clear way out of the situation. So he would sort of throw the dice, and then if the outcome were good, it would be great. And then if it was not, he would be able to just change everything. He'd change, and a lot of it was his rhetoric. He would say, well, whatever, I'm going to do something to someone, and I couldn't really do it. Well, actually, they're not so bad. I'm changing my policy abruptly. Doesn't look like it's going to work. I tried it, and then I'll just back away. And that has seemingly served him well, that particular strategy, certainly in many situations, that's worked out. And people have often said, you don't understand all the extreme statements that President Trump makes and the way that he does things. He wants to, in his idea about negotiations, this will put him in the very great negotiation situation, and I can recant if necessary. Well, it's very difficult to recant here. It's very difficult. And the other point about this is, I think, that if you're going to do, let's suppose, Harry, you were anointed and in the White House, and you were going to do this, I think a reasonable person would understand all of the downsides to what happened, and there'd be scenarios that would be worked out. What happens, let's say, if there's they put a nuclear weapon in, they ship it in on a boat into New York and blow New York up, or what are we going to do about it? What about this? What about some huge, at least some kind of plan in place? And obviously the biggest danger was the Persian Gulf and the oil flowing there and closing the Gulf, and how easy it would be to do that, and what the world issues, how bad that would be. And we can remember, I think, the earlier war in the Middle East when the U.S. backed Israel, and then the Arab world put this huge embargo in place, and the catastrophic impact that had. Well, we're facing another catastrophic impact right now, very catastrophic impact. And the idea of how you can deal with this with military force is a big question. And if your opponent is tremendous, the Shiite deal is, I'm not an expert, let's see, we have, after the death of the prophet, the question is who's going to do whatever, and the idea is the Shiites believe one particular relative of the prophet should be the head guy. And
the leadership of the Ummah should remain with the family of the prophet.
Right.
So they follow the line of Ali, his son-in-law.
Right.
in that sense.
And they the fight, they were martyred. I mean, so all and the notion of martyrdom is very, very powerful, and the glory of martyrdom is really something, and the idea of doing that. And I think in the eyes of the Shiite world, we have to accept the idea that many people there consider the West the devil, and the U.S. Satan incarnate. Killed everybody, and including all the children in the school, the 160 of them, hit. I think, as far as I know, innocently. Our mistake was made, and this happens in war, which is another thing to say. If you're going to go in there, can the military absolutely assure what's up? And the other thing that's going on is your co-conspirators in this, the Israelis. Are you confident they're going to do whatever's up? And then finally, another part of this story is that the Israelis have this, they've got their own set of motivations and desires with their policy. Yes. Mm-hmm. So the U.S. policy was sort of, we don't want nuclear weapons as far as I can tell, which I agree with. I mean, we'd rather not have them, and it would be good if it would be great if it was going to be a democratic nice place to be, and apparently it is in many ways. If the 90 million people would come into the world order such as it exists, and everybody would be happy and tranquil, that would be a useful U.S. policy.
Well, it used to be.
But the idea is the Israelis have their own ideas, and we're not exactly committed, I think, to destroying the Islamic forces in the south of Lebanon, which is a major Israeli policy. And so in some ways, there's some cover given for that, and there's relatively little discussion about that. But as far as objectives, which, if you're the leader there, it's reasonable to have all these enemies around you. If you had the chance, you'd like to cut their heads off everywhere. So this is an opportunity to do that, particularly with the largesse of America. So they're putting huge amounts of resources involved in this. And we've taken a side in a 2,000-year-old conflict. The American people seem to have taken a side, which they are unaware, generally, as to how that's playing itself out.
I mean, I would say there's a couple things. This is not a religious conflict, I think, in the sense that you're thinking of. This is a religious conflict in that this is a civil war within the Muslim world. There is the Sunni world that is led by Saudi Arabia, backed by the United States, and that has been foremost in the mind of Iran as the champion of the Shiite world. And Iran's foreign policy since 1979 has largely been oriented around trying to navigate that divide. And Israel's existence is a problem for Iran only insofar as it serves to destabilize the Sunni world. That they are fine with that. And so they rely on lots of local Shiite proxies like Hezbollah in Lebanon, like the Assad regime previously in Syria, the government of Qatar and Bahrain, to kind of just keep things a little bit off balance. And the goal of pursuing a nuclear weapon was to try and protect them from Israel more than anything else. Because that rhetoric has just been going around. But Israel and the United States do view this as a religious war in the aggressive sense. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, got up and said that we were at war with Iran because of their misguided religion. There is certainly an attitude within the White House of a new crusade going on here. And the lesson of the Crusades, and of all religious warfare, is that it is going to get bloodier and it's going to get worse, because once you raise the stakes to that degree, there are no off-ramps to conflict when it becomes an existential question of where the soul goes after death. There are no off-ramps. You can't negotiate away religious principle. We had a few chances to do this in a way that would have been better. You mentioned the idea of kind of sponsoring a popular revolution. There was a popular revolution, but we had moved all of our assets to kidnap Maduro from Venezuela. And if we had been in place to support those protests and a potential revolution, then there might have been change. But then the regime killed potentially 30,000 civilian protesters. There is no appetite in the civilian world to rise up, particularly not in the face of American aggression. And this is the third time they see that the United States has intervened catastrophically within their country. They had a flourishing democratic society in the 1950s until we overthrew Mohammad Mossadegh in 1953 at the request of the British. Then we put in the Shah, who was a violently repressive regime. He wanted to modernize Iran at any cost. And because the United States had burned all the opposition parties that were democratic, even the Communist Party we had suborned in 1953, there was no credible opposition to the Shah except the religious extremists. And their victory in 1979 meant that there was never going to be a positive relationship with the United States. We had briefly, under the Obama administration, created a deal to rein in a nuclear Iran, and that seemed to be working, but President Trump threw that out the door very quickly in his first term. And then we were negotiating with the Iranian regime as late as Friday before we invaded. So much that Oman, who had been mediating the talks, had gone out and said that Iran has promised to meet almost all of America's demands. Negotiations seem to be going well. And then that night, we turned and bombed them. Now, part of that is likely because it turns out that in this deal to create nuclear safeguards limits, Witkoff and Kushner did not even have a nuclear expert in the room. So they likely did not understand anything they were being told. This entire story is, to me, a story of willful manipulation of the United States by Israel. Lindsey Graham has been a prime example of this. He has been trumpeting how this is Israel's war, and he is glad to assist Israel in whatever way, in capacity he can. He spent more time in Israel this year than he has in the United States almost, on various visits. Ted Cruz has said similar things. But Netanyahu's been trying to get the United States to do this for decades. And he has a government in Israel that is the most right-wing, that is the most aggressive that it has been probably in its entire history. This is the 6th country that Israel has attacked in 2 years. If any other country in the world attacked 6 other countries in 2 years, we would be getting involved to attack them, most likely. But it seems, I think Israel has manipulated us into a conflict that we really did not want, we certainly did not need, and we definitively did not plan for an exit strategy. I think there is definitely a case of invincibility syndrome going on where because the earlier attacks on Iran had been fairly successful, because the raid on Maduro was so successful, that there is this attitude of we can just drop a few bombs, kill a few people, and walk away. And, you know, in the words of Machiavelli, wars start when you will, but they do not end when you wish. This was very poor. We did not have the temerity to think that Iran would not just surrender immediately. And we are going to have to deal with the consequences of a war that was not really of our choosing and that does not have a clear way out for us.
Well, we seem to, just in general, I mean, firstly, I think it is fair to question the U.S. relationship with Israel, at least think about it. I mean, and the idea has been that it's a no-go place. If you say, well, let's just think about it, people accuse you of being a Nazi. You're going to you're going to injure all these Jewish people that are your friends, colleagues. And nobody wishes to do that. But just the idea we can at least discuss this where are we on this relationship, and how is that happening? And there is a lot of questions in regards to that relationship, which is a very strong relationship. There are a lot of things that we have many similarities, and I think in the past our role had been sort of an honest broker to try and arrange a way that the Israeli people, the Arab people could live in peace. We could put some kind of, and the U.S. would help do it, and it would be our highest desire that both sides in this conflict could be appropriately treated. And there is a lot of hatred. There is tremendous amount of hatred, in my opinion, in the interchange in the Middle East, and long-standing religious, I'm aware of the Sunni Shiite problems, there are disputes, and there's that going on, and there are other smaller minorities that are going on there, particularly in the Assad regime Syria, that the Awi, he sort of became their guy. All kinds of things are going on, all that are not easily understood. And I will say this. I mean, I would suggest, Harry, if you're in the White House and you're contemplating something like this, you have a deep dive into the socioeconomic situation of the country you're about to attack, and particularly their political aspirations, their, what makes them tick, and how they perceive fairness, to say that, and what they're required to do if they're attacked. It's like when at Pearl Harbor, the Japanese, I don't believe, understood how the U.S. would respond to this. The whole country would just go become so motivated for revenge. The natural order, the prosperity of the country, everything was diverted into this war effort, which might not have happened, probably would not have happened if the U.S. had not been attacked first. Well, this is quite an attack, far past Pearl Harbor, on a group of people that are inclined to respond intensely. All right, last word for you, Harry.
I would say that we are in for a long haul here. And I think that the best case scenario we have is for Congress to reassert itself and its authority. But in the meantime, we're just going to have to ride this out, because we did not choose to get on this roller coaster, but we are going to have to roll with it for now.
Well, all right. Well, thank you, Harry, and we'll talk some more about this.
Of course.
Very, very good. Thank you. Thank you.